My sister used me as a free babysitter until the day I found her baby shivering from the cold on my doorstep. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories, and leave your like on the video. I should have seen it coming. When my sister announced her pregnancy at 23, the family acted like she'd just won the lottery. My mother threw a parade. Meanwhile, I was 28, engaged to someone Marcus in Germany, building a career, and somehow I was still the disappointing one. That's how it had always been. My sister could set the kitchen on fire making toast, and my mother would praise her for trying. I could cure cancer and get asked why I hadn't done it sooner. The dynamic was set since childhood. My sister was the baby, the princess needing protection. I was the responsible one who existed to make everyone else's life easier. When she crashed my mother's car at 17, I got lectured for not driving her more. When she dropped out of college after one semester, I should have been more supportive. The babysitting schedule appeared before the baby was even born. Color-coded, laminated, Tuesdays and Thursdays after work, every other weekend, all major holidays. Families should be together. At Sunday dinner, I stared at it for 5 minutes. I didn't agree to this, I said. My sister barely looked up from her phone. Mom said you'd help. I said you'd help, my mother added with that smile that wasn't a smile. Family helps family, Rowan. Or did you forget that while planning your fancy European life? The fancy European life being my fiancé's job offer that I'd been agonizing over for months. Marcus had been offered a senior position at his company's headquarters in Berlin, with a salary that would let us finally stop worrying about money, buy a house, maybe start our own family someday. We were supposed to move after the wedding in 8 months. I'd mentioned it at family dinners because every time I did, my mother got this look like I'd announced plans to join a cult and abandon everything good and pure about American values. I have a job, I started. Yeah, and I'm going to have a baby. Babies are harder than jobs. You can do your job during the day. I need help at night. I didn't say I wouldn't help sometimes, I said, but this is 2 evenings a week and every other weekend. That's a part-time job. That's family, my mother interrupted. This is how family works. I need to think about this, I said. What's to think about? My sister asked. You don't have kids. Your job is just sitting at a computer. Marcus isn't even in the country. Why are you being so selfish about this? Selfish. Because wanting to maintain my own life, my own schedule, my own autonomy was selfish. That was the moment to hold my ground. But I didn't. I said I'd think about it, which everyone at that table knew meant yes. The social media post went up that night. Professional photo. So blessed to have the most amazing sister who's already committed to helping me raise this little angel. My phone exploded with comments. I'd been boxed into a corner. I called her immediately. Music pumped in the background. Take it down. Because I never agreed to regular babysitting. I never said Tuesday and Thursday. I never said any of this. You're telling the entire family that I committed to something I haven't committed to. She laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my God. Rowan, why do you have to make everything difficult? It's just a few hours a week. Normal people help their siblings. Normal people don't freak out over a Facebook post. Normal people ask before volunteering someone else's entire life. I'm not volunteering your life. I'm asking for help. There's a difference. You're not asking. You're announcing. There's a difference. The music in the background got louder, and I heard male voices laughing. She was at a party. 7 months pregnant and at a party. Look, I can't deal with this drama right now, she said. The post stays up. If you want to look like a terrible person by backing out now, that's your choice. But everyone already knows you said yes. She hung up. I'd been manipulated into free childcare through weaponized social media. The baby came in early March. My sister went into labor at 3 in the morning and demanded I come immediately. When I arrived, she was scrolling through her phone between contractions, arguing with the father about the delivery room. They'd broken up a month earlier. He'd showed up anyway, holding a stuffed elephant. She called security. He left. Bean was born at 7:42 that morning. 6 pounds? 11 ounces. My sister took one look at him and handed him back to the nurse. I should explain the name. Bean isn't his real name. I'm not using his actual name for privacy reasons, and Bean is what I called him from the start because he was tiny and wrinkly. His father uses it too now. I'm tired, my sister said. Someone else deal with him for a while. I held Bean for the first time in that hospital room while my sister slept. He was tiny and red and wrinkly, already looking furious at being born into this family. My mother showed up at 10 with flowers and balloons and enough baby clothes for triplets, posting everything to social media before my sister woke. The first emergency babysitting happened when Bean was 3 weeks old. My sister showed up at my apartment at 7 in the evening with no warning. "I have a date," she announced, shoving the bag at me. "A date? You just had a baby 3 weeks ago." "Exactly. 3 weeks. Do you know how long it's been since I felt like a human being? Do you know how long it's been since I felt attractive or interesting or like anything other than a milk machine? I need this, Rowan. I need to feel normal again." Bean was screaming. My sister was already backing toward the door, car keys in hand, purse on her shoulder. "How long?" I asked. "I don't know. A few hours? I'll text you." She was gone before I could argue. Bean screamed for 4 straight hours. 4. I tried everything. Feeding, changing, walking, bouncing, singing, begging, praying to deities I didn't believe in. Nothing worked. At midnight, I was pacing my apartment with a screaming baby, exhausted and desperate, when my phone finally buzzed. "Staying at a friend's tonight. Thanks for watching him. You're the best." A friend's. Right. I stared at that message for a long moment, Bean still wailing in my arms, and felt something cold settle in my chest. She'd planned this. She'd known she wasn't coming back tonight. She'd dumped her 3-week-old baby on me with no warning and no intention of returning before morning. I called Marcus. 6 a.m. in Berlin. "I don't know what I'm doing," I said. "She just left him here. He won't stop crying. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know how to help him. I don't know what I'm doing." "Breathe," he said. "Just breathe. You're doing fine. Babies cry. It doesn't mean you're failing. It feels like failing. I know, but you're not. You're helping. That's what you do." "I'm enabling her," I said. "That's what I'm doing. I'm making it easy for her to be a bad mother. Maybe. But right now, that baby needs someone. And you're someone. Focus on that." Bean finally fell asleep at 2 in the morning, exhausted from crying. I put him down in my bed, surrounded by pillows so he couldn't roll off, and collapsed on the couch. My sister showed up at noon the next day, hungover, wearing the same clothes, reeking of alcohol and bad decisions. "How was he?" she asked, scooping Bean up without checking if I was okay, if I'd slept, if I needed anything. "He cried for 4 hours straight." "Yeah, he does that. Colic or something. The doctor said it'll pass. You could have warned me. I'm warning you now." She was already heading for the door. "Thanks for watching him. You're a lifesaver." And she was gone again, leaving me standing in my apartment feeling used and exhausted and angry at myself for not saying no. That should have been my first real warning sign. That should have been the moment I established boundaries, demanded respect, insisted on advance notice and reasonable limits. But family is family, right? That's what I kept telling myself. That's what my mother kept telling me when I complained over Sunday dinner the following week. "She's adjusting," my mother said, passing the mashed potatoes. "Being a single mother is hard. You need to be supportive." I am being supportive. But she didn't even ask. She shouldn't have to ask. You're family. Family helps automatically. Family doesn't keep score. But my sister was keeping score. Every favor I did was added to a list of things I owed her, ways I'd volunteered to help, commitments I'd apparently made. Every time I hesitated, every time I asked for notice, every time I suggested maybe she should plan better, I was being difficult. I was being unsupportive. I was being selfish. The schedule became real about 2 months in. Tuesday and Thursday evenings turned into Tuesday and Thursday overnights because she needed to focus on her online courses. Ironic and sad and enraging all at once. I started noticing things around month 3. Bean always seemed hungry when she dropped him off, gulping bottles desperately. His diapers were often full to bursting, unchanged for hours, and his clothes were always dirty. He had persistent diaper rash, and he was too quiet. Like he'd learned demanding attention didn't work. I mentioned it once, carefully choosing my words at Sunday dinner. "Bean seems really hungry when you bring him over. Maybe we should increase his feeding schedule." My sister rolled her eyes so hard I worried they'd get stuck. "Oh my God, Rowan. Not everyone is perfect like you. Some of us are surviving. Do you want to criticize me or do you want to help me?" "I'm not criticizing." "You are. Every time you say something like that, you're telling me I'm a bad mother. You're telling me I can't take care of my own child. Do you know how that feels?" My mother jumped in immediately. "Rowan, your sister is doing her best. Not everyone has the luxury of a career and a fiancé and all the time in the world. She's struggling. The least you could do is be kind." The way she framed it, There was no good answer. If I criticized, I was being cruel to a struggling single mother. If I helped without comment, I was enabling behavior that made my skin crawl. I chose helping because what else was I supposed to do? Call child services on my own sister? That felt nuclear. That felt like something you couldn't take back. That felt like the kind of thing that would make me the villain in every family story for the rest of my life. I should have called. I really, really should have called. The first time I saw bruises, Bean was 5 months old. Little finger marks on his upper arms. 4 on one side, 1 on the other, like someone had grabbed him hard. Really hard. The kind of grip that leaves marks on baby skin. I took photos before I said anything. Something told me I might need evidence later. I didn't want to think too hard about why I'd need evidence against my own sister. When I showed her the pictures, asking as gently as I could how they'd happened, her response was immediate and defensive. He was squirming during a diaper change, and I had to hold him still. Baby squirm, Rowan. It happens. Or did you not know that? Oh, wait. You don't have kids, so I guess you wouldn't know. Maybe don't judge things you don't understand. I'm not judging. I'm just asking. You're always just asking. Just concerned. Just trying to help. But it always comes across as criticism. Like you think you could do better. Like you think I'm failing. I don't think that. I lied. Because I absolutely did think that. I thought she was failing spectacularly, and I was terrified of what that failure meant for Bean. It didn't feel right. But I also didn't know enough about babies to argue with confidence. Maybe they did bruise easily. Maybe I was overreacting because I'd never liked my sister much to begin with. Maybe the problem was my perception, not her parenting. I took photos anyway. Something telling me I might need them later. More photos. Building a file I didn't want to admit I was building. That night, during our nightly video call, I showed Marcus the pictures. His face went through several expressions. Concern, then anger, then carefully controlled neutrality. That doesn't look normal, he said. I don't know what's normal. I've never been around babies before all this. Maybe I'm seeing problems because I'm looking for problems. Or maybe you're seeing problems because there are problems, he said carefully. Rowan, this isn't just about babysitting anymore, is it? I don't know what it's about, I admitted. My apartment suddenly felt too quiet, too cold, too much like a place where bad thoughts lived. I don't know if I'm seeing what's really there or if I'm creating problems because I resent being roped into childcare. I don't know if I'm a concerned aunt or a bitter sister. I don't know anything anymore. Maybe talk to her pediatrician? And say what? Hi, I'm the aunt, and I think my sister might be hurting her baby, but I'm not sure and I don't have any real proof. Just a feeling? They won't tell me anything. Privacy laws. And even if they did listen, what if I'm wrong? What if I blow up my entire family over nothing? He was quiet for a moment, and I could see him thinking, choosing his words. Just keep the photos. Document everything, just in case. Just in case. Those 2 words haunted me for months. Just in case of what exactly? Just in case my sister was hurting her baby? Just in case something terrible happened and I needed proof I'd tried to stop it? Just in case I ended up in court someday explaining why I'd seen warning signs and done nothing? I kept the photos. I started a folder on my phone. Dates, times, observations. Bean arrived hungry at 7:15. Bean's diaper was unchanged for at least 6 hours based on how full it was. Bean had a new bruise on his thigh. Bean flinched when I reached for him too quickly. Bean didn't smile today. Bean cried when I changed his diaper, like he'd given up on expecting comfort. It felt paranoid. It felt like I was building a case against my own family. It felt necessary. My sister's ex-boyfriend showed up at my work around month 6. I barely recognized him at first. He looked exhausted, desperate. I need to talk to you about your sister, he said. And then he told me things that made my stomach turn. Drug use. Heavy drug use throughout the pregnancy and after. He'd tried getting custody, but without proof, without witnesses, he couldn't get anywhere. The family closed ranks. I'm telling you because you're around Bean. If something happens, if you notice something, please call someone. Don't assume someone else will handle it. I stood there in the parking lot, keys in hand, trying to process what he'd told me. It aligned too perfectly with things I'd noticed. The erratic behavior, the weight loss, the way she'd sometimes seem manic and energized and other times functional. The mysterious online courses that never seemed to progress. The late nights and unexplained absences. The way Bean always seemed worse after weekends with her. But it also felt like something out of a TV drama, not something that happened in real families. Not something that happened to people I knew. Not something I could know and then unknow. Watch him. Document things. And if you see something that concerns you, really concerns you, don't hesitate. Don't tell yourself it's not your business or that family handles things internally. Call CPS, call the police, call someone, because I'm telling you right now, she's not safe. And eventually, that lack of safety is going to hurt him in ways you can't take back. I called Marcus again that night, after Bean was asleep in my spare bedroom during one of the overnight babysitting shifts. I sat in my dark living room and told him everything Andrew had said. Do you believe him? Maybe. It would explain a lot. What do I do? Watch him. Document. If something scares you, call. That's all you can do. Doesn't feel like enough. It's more than nothing. The holidays were a nightmare. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all babysitting while she partied. My mother praised her for taking time for self-care and scolded me for looking stressed. Thanksgiving was particularly bad. My sister dropped Bean off at my apartment on Wednesday evening, just for a few hours, so she could prep food for the family dinner the next day. Those few hours turned into overnight, then all of Thursday morning. She finally showed up at 2 in the afternoon, 4 hours after dinner was supposed to start, with nothing prepared. I couldn't find turkey anywhere, she said, like this was a reasonable excuse. All the stores were closed. It's Thanksgiving, my mother said, but her tone was gentle, understanding. Of course the stores are closed. We should have planned better. Don't worry, honey, we'll make do. I'd spent the morning trying to soothe a fussy baby while also making green bean casserole and sweet potatoes because my mother had asked me to contribute, despite knowing I had Bean. When I arrived late because Bean had a diaper blowout right as we were leaving, my mother frowned. You could have been on time, she said. Family dinner is important. I had Bean all night. I've been trying to, and your sister needed that break. She's been working so hard. The least you could do is be understanding about it. Christmas was worse. My sister announced 2 weeks before the holiday that she'd need me to watch Bean on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day because she had important plans. When I asked what plans, she got defensive. Does it matter? I'm allowed to have a life, Rowan. I'm allowed to do things. Just because I have a kid doesn't mean I have to give up everything. I'm not saying give up everything. I'm saying maybe plan around the actual holiday. Maybe spend Christmas with your child. Oh, so now you're the expert on parenting? You who doesn't have kids and doesn't understand what it's like? You who gets to live your perfect little life while judging everyone else? My mother jumped in before I could respond. Rowan, you're being unfair. Your sister deserves to enjoy the holidays too. We're all family. We all help each other. That's what family means. So I spent Christmas Eve and Christmas morning with Bean, watching him crawl around my apartment, trying to keep him entertained with wrapping paper and bows since my sister hadn't bought him any presents. I bought him things myself, soft toys, board books, a little musical elephant that played lullabies. When my sister picked him up on Christmas afternoon to attend family dinner, she saw the toys. You didn't need to do all that, she said, but she took them anyway, adding them to her car like they'd been her purchases all along. At dinner, she accepted praise from relatives for being such a thoughtful mother, for choosing such perfect gifts, for knowing exactly what babies like. I said nothing. What could I say? That she'd left her 8-month-old alone on Christmas morning? That she hadn't bought him a single present? That I was subsidizing her motherhood in addition to providing free childcare? It would make me look petty. It would make me look bitter. It would confirm everything my family already thought about me. That I was jealous, difficult, incapable of being supportive without keeping score. My fiancé couldn't come for the holidays. Visa timing meant he had to stay in Germany until after New Year's. We'd been planning for me to visit him in February, a 2-week trip that would be our last long visit before the wedding in June. I'd bought the tickets 6 months in advance, requested the time off work, mentioned it to my family approximately 75 times in various conversations. My sister scheduled herself a beach vacation for the exact same 2 weeks. Perfect timing, my mother said cheerfully when my sister announced it at Sunday dinner in January. Rowan can watch Bean while you recharge. You really need this, sweetie. You've been so stressed. I'm going to Germany, I said flatly. I have plane tickets. I've had them for 6 months. I've told you about this trip at least a dozen times. Oh, but you can go any time. Your sister needs this now. She's been dealing with so much. Her mental health is suffering. Surely Marcus would understand. Surely he'd want you to help family. I haven't seen Marcus in person in 4 months. We're getting married in 5 months. This trip is important. My sister looked up from her phone, where she'd been scrolling through resort photos. So you're saying your vacation is more important than my well-being? You're saying spending time with your fiancé, who you talk to every single day, is more important than helping me avoid a mental breakdown? I'm saying I made plans first. I'm saying you knew about my trip and scheduled your vacation anyway. I'm saying you need to find other childcare. There is no other childcare. Her voice rose, drawing attention from my mother, who'd been in the kitchen. You think I have options? You think I have money for a nanny or someone I trust? You're family. You're supposed to help. That's what family does. What I'm doing isn't help anymore, I said, and my voice was shaking. It's parenthood. I'm doing your job. I'm being Bean's mother more than you are. And I never signed up for that. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother appeared in the doorway, dish towel in hand, face already hardening into disapproval. How dare you? She said quietly. How dare you speak to your sister like that? She's struggling. She's doing her best. And you, with your perfect job and your perfect relationship and your perfect life, you stand there and judge her? You criticize her when she's drowning? She's going on vacation. That's not drowning. Mental health vacations are important. Self-care is important. Or do you not believe in mental health? Is that what this is about? The argument escalated from there. I said things I'd been holding back for years. About favoritism, about enabling, about refusing to acknowledge that my sister wasn't struggling, she was neglectful. About how I'd been documenting bruises and missed feedings and dirty diapers for months. About how Bean flinched when I moved too quickly. About how this wasn't normal new mother stress. This was something darker. My sister cried. The kind of crying that's meant to be witnessed, meant to evoke sympathy. Loud, dramatic, accompanied by statements like, I can't believe you think that about me, and I'm trying so hard, and you've always hated me. My mother called me selfish, called me cruel, said I was showing my true colors, that I'd always been jealous of my sister, that I'd never been able to be happy for anyone else's success. She brought up childhood incidents, times I'd supposedly been mean or dismissive, rewriting history into a narrative where I'd always been the villain. I left, walked out in the middle of dinner, grabbed my coat and bag, and drove home in silence. I didn't speak to either of them for 3 weeks, which was glorious until the guilt started setting in around week 2, because that's how they trained me. That's how they'd always trained me. Set boundaries, feel guilty, stand up for yourself, feel like a monster, choose your own life, feel selfish. But I didn't change my tickets. I told my sister she needed to find other childcare, offered to help her look for daycare options or babysitters, even said I'd pay for the first month if money was the issue. She refused all of it. I don't want a stranger watching my baby. I don't trust strangers. I only trust family. Then ask Mom. Ask someone else in the family. Mom works, everyone else works or has their own kids. You're the only one who has time. I don't have time. I have a job and a life and a trip I've been planning for months. Then I guess you're choosing Marcus over your nephew. I guess you're choosing your vacation over family. Don't blame me when Bean grows up not knowing his aunt. Don't blame me when you miss all his milestones because you were too selfish to help when it mattered. The emotional manipulation was textbook. Make me the villain. Make my reasonable boundaries seem like abandonment. Make my refusal to parent her child seem like cruelty to Bean. It almost worked. I almost canceled my trip. Almost called Marcus to explain that I couldn't come, that family needed me, that I had to be responsible. But then I remembered Andrew's words in the parking lot. I remembered the bruises. I remembered Bean's hollow eyes and too quiet demeanor. And I realized that staying wouldn't help Bean. It would just enable my sister to keep neglecting him while I cleaned up her messes. I kept my tickets. I told my sister no. The whole family got involved, taking sides, sending messages, creating drama that could have been avoided if my sister had just asked literally anyone else to watch her child during her vacation, or canceled her vacation, or been an actual parent. But she didn't want to be a parent. She wanted someone else to do the hard parts while she got the credit for the cute parts. She wanted free childcare from someone she could control through guilt and family obligation. She wanted me to sacrifice my life so she wouldn't have to adjust hers. My boss noticed my stress at work, called me into her office one afternoon and asked if everything was okay. Family stuff, I said, trying to smile. Just some conflict about boundaries and expectations. She studied me for a moment. You know, boundaries are healthy. People who get angry when you set boundaries are usually angry because they were benefiting from you not having any. I went home and cried for an hour because nobody in my family had ever said anything like that to me. Nobody had ever suggested that my boundaries were reasonable, that my anger was justified, that I wasn't the problem. 3 days before my flight to Germany, everything changed. My sister was leaving for her Caribbean vacation that morning. She'd posted airport selfies the night before, already celebrating her freedom and her early morning flight. She'd told the family she'd arranged childcare. She'd told my mother everything was handled. I woke up at 5 in the morning to someone pounding on my door and screaming. Not knocking, pounding. I opened it expecting fire or flood. Instead, I found Bean. Just Bean. Alone. Sitting on my doormat in the hallway, wearing only a diaper and t-shirt. In February. 28 degrees. He was blue. Not crying blue or cold blue. Actually blue. His lips were purple blue. His tiny fingers were gray blue, and he was shaking so hard it looked like he was having a seizure. Eyes unfocused. He wasn't crying anymore. I think he'd been crying so long he'd run out of tears and energy and the will to keep trying. I grabbed him and called 911 immediately. A baby, 10 months old. He was left outside in the cold. He's blue. He's responsive. I think it's hypothermia. My voice sounded weirdly calm, considering my hands were shaking so badly I could hold the phone. Is the baby breathing? Yes, but it's shallow. Fast. His skin is ice cold. Keep him warm, but don't use direct heat. Paramedics are on the way. The paramedics arrived within 7 minutes. They assessed Bean quickly, checking his temperature, his responsiveness, his circulation, 91.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Moderate hypothermia. They needed to transport him immediately. Are you the mother? The lead paramedic asked me. I'm his aunt. His mother left him outside my door and went on vacation. The paramedic's expression didn't change, but her partner's jaw tightened. We need to transport him to the ER. He needs controlled rewarming and monitoring. Can you come with us? I grabbed my phone, my keys, my wallet, and climbed into the ambulance. While they worked on Bean during the short ride to the hospital, I pulled up my building's security camera app. 4:31 in the morning. My sister's car pulled up to the building. I recognized it immediately. The silver sedan with the dent on the passenger side from when she'd backed into a pole and blamed the parking lot layout. 4:32. She got out, opened the back door, grabbed Bean from his car seat. He was crying on the footage, his mouth open in a wail I couldn't hear but could imagine. She didn't comfort him, didn't kiss his head, didn't whisper that it would be okay. She just carried him like a bag of groceries. 4:33. She walked him to my building's entrance, set him down outside my door, and walked away. Didn't knock, didn't ring the bell, didn't wait to make sure I heard him, didn't check if anyone else was in the hallway. Just left him there and drove off while he cried. Then she drove straight to the airport. I checked her social media. Posted at 5:47 a.m. Airport vibes. 2 weeks of paradise, here I come. He'd been alone in that hallway for 29 minutes. In February. In a diaper and t-shirt. Crying and freezing and alone. Not understanding why someone had left him. Not understanding that he was in danger. Just knowing that he was cold and scared and nobody was coming. While his mother was taking selfies in the airport security line. At the hospital, they admitted Bean immediately. Core temperature rewarming protocol. Cardiac monitoring. Watch for complications. The ER doctor, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and no-nonsense energy, pulled me aside after the initial assessment. This child could have died. Another 20 or 30 minutes and we'd be looking at severe hypothermia, possibly cardiac arrest. In an infant this young, those outcomes are often fatal. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Yes. I'm required by law to report this. Hospital social worker will be here soon and they'll likely contact Child Protective Services. You should know that's happening. Good, I said. Call them. Please call them. She looked at me for a long moment. You're not trying to protect the mother? I'm trying to protect him. That's all I care about right now. Bean was in the hospital for 28 hours. They kept him for observation, monitoring his heart, his temperature, checking for frostbite damage to his tiny fingers and toes. Miraculously, there was none. He'd been found just in time. I stayed with him the entire time, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside his crib, watching him gradually return to normal temperature and normal color. Marcus arrived at the hospital at midnight on the second day, having caught the first available flight. He walked into that hospital room looking exhausted and worried, saw me beside Bean's crib, and just held me while I finally let myself cry. Child Protective Services came to the hospital the next morning. The caseworker, a tired-looking woman in her 40s named Patricia, interviewed me for 2 hours. I showed her everything. The security footage, the photos of bruises from previous months, the documentation I'd been keeping, the timeline of increasing neglect. Where's the mother now? Patricia asked. On a Caribbean vacation. She left yesterday morning. Posted about it on social media. I can show you. I pulled up my sister's Instagram. Photos of the beach. photos of tropical drinks, a video of her laughing with friends at a poolside bar. The timestamp was from 3 hours ago. Her son was in the hospital recovering from hypothermia she'd caused, and she was doing shots by a pool. Patricia's expression went very still. Does she know he's in the hospital? I've called 13 times, texted 8 times. No response. Marcus. Rowan. His voice was firm. You just found a baby dying on your doorstep. You called the authorities on your own sister. You're about to face hell from your entire family. I'm not leaving you alone for this. I'm coming. He hung up to book tickets. He arrived 12 hours later, exhausted and wrinkled and perfect, having taken emergency leave and a red-eye flight and 3 different connections to get to me as fast as humanly possible. He walked through my door, dropped his bag, and held me while I cried for the first time since finding Bean on my doorstep. I keep seeing him, I said into Marcus's shoulder. I keep seeing how blue he was. I keep thinking about what would have happened if I'd slept through the noise. If I'd been out of town. If I'd decided to ignore it. He would have died there, in that hallway. Alone. But he didn't, Marcus said firmly. You heard him. You saved him. You did everything right. My family is going to hate me. Your family should hate your sister. The fact that they won't is not your problem to fix. I tried calling my sister 13 more times that day. Sent texts. Sent emails. Left voicemails that ranged from concerned to angry to desperate. Nothing. Complete silence. Like she'd dropped Bean off and then fallen off the face of the earth. She finally texted back at 7 in the evening, not a phone call. Not even a concerned message. Just, at the beach. What's up? At the beach. Her child had nearly died of exposure on my doorstep at 4 in the morning, and she was at the beach, posting selfies in a bikini, drinking cocktails with little umbrellas, living her best life while her baby was in emergency foster care, being evaluated for hypothermia and chronic neglect. I stared at that emoji for a solid minute, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Something that felt like the last thread of familial obligation snapping. Something that felt like I'd finally seen her clearly. I texted back. Bean was hypothermic when you abandoned him at my door at 4:30 this morning. CPS has him now. He nearly died. The response came back in seconds. A flurry of messages that lit up my phone like fireworks. What? You bitch. I was coming back. It was an emergency. I had to leave right then. You called CPS? You called CPS on me? I can't believe you would do this. You're destroying our family. Mom is going to hear about this. Everyone is going to know what you did. You're going to regret this. Then about 40 more messages I didn't read because the caseworker had called to tell me Bean was in emergency foster care, and would I be available for an interview tomorrow? And could I bring any additional documentation I had? And did I know the identity of the father, because they'd found no record of paternity establishment, and the mother wasn't being cooperative about providing information? I canceled my Germany trip. My fiancé, bless him, said he'd stay as long as I needed. His company let him work remotely for a while, and he set up in my spare bedroom with his laptop and a terrible time zone schedule, making coffee at midnight for morning meetings and crashing at weird hours. You know I'm supposed to be with you in Germany right now, I said one night, finding him on a video call at 2 in the morning. He muted himself and turned to me. You're going through something. Where else would I be? The investigation moved faster than I expected. CPS doesn't mess around when there's video evidence of child endangerment. Within 3 days, they'd interviewed everyone. My sister was required to take a drug test as part of the investigation. She failed. Cocaine, present in amounts that suggested regular, recent use. When retested, same result. The day after the test results came back, my sister's ex showed up at my apartment again. This time, he had a manila folder stuffed with papers. I've been documenting everything for 2 years. Every missed visit. Every concerning text. Every custody attempt that failed. I didn't have anyone who'd testify. Now you're on my side. Maybe we can protect him. I gave all of it to the caseworker. Looking back, I wonder if I should have felt guilty about that. About essentially helping to build a case against my own sister. I didn't. I felt relieved. The family reaction was immediate and explosive. My phone rang 67 times in one day. My mother showed up at my work, causing enough of a scene that security had to escort her out. Cousins I knew sent messages calling me a traitor. An uncle I hadn't seen in 5 years told me I was going to hell. The social media campaign was particularly creative. My sister posted a long, tearful rant about how her sister had stolen her baby because she was jealous, how I'd always hated her, how I'd made false reports to CPS because I couldn't have children of my own and wanted to ruin her life. None of that was true, but truth doesn't matter much when people want drama. The post got shared hundreds of times. I received death threats. Actual death threats from strangers who believed my sister's version of events. Someone found my work email and sent graphic descriptions of what I deserved for destroying a family. My fiancé started documenting everything. Screenshots, saved voicemails, printed out messages. "We're building our own file," he said grimly, organizing it all into folders. "If this escalates, we need records." It escalated. The restraining order came 2 weeks after Bean was removed from my sister's care. 3 days after, she violated it. I was leaving work when she appeared in the parking lot, screaming about how I'd ruined her life. Security intercepted her. She was arrested on the spot. My mother was arrested too. She'd been driving, waiting around the corner. When my sister was detained, my mother tried driving away and nearly hit a pedestrian. Both spent a night in jail. Both blamed me for it. My mother made bail the next morning. She took a plea deal 2 weeks later, 12 months probation, anger management classes, and her own restraining order prohibiting contact with me. The judge made it clear that any further involvement in harassment would result in jail time. The locksmith came to my apartment the next day to change all my locks. The security company came the day after to install cameras. Marcus went with me everywhere, including to the bathroom at restaurants, because we didn't know who might be following me or when the next confrontation would happen. I found the listening devices a week later. A small black rectangle, professionally installed. We found 3 more, one in my bedroom, one in the kitchen, one in the bathroom. The attempted break-in happened before we could fully investigate who'd planted them. 3 a.m., someone trying to pick my lock. My uncle. The camera caught everything. Him crouched at my door with lockpicks, muttering to himself, clearly drunk or high or both. Police arrived in 6 minutes and arrested him. He had a key. My old key my sister had given him. That's how the devices got installed. He'd let himself in while I was at work, planted them, left. He was charged with breaking and entering, criminal trespass for the earlier entry, and illegal surveillance. Plea deal: 18 months probation, mandatory substance abuse treatment, permanent restraining order. The judge handling Bean's case was not impressed by any of it. She extended restraining orders to include anyone acting as my sister's agent. This is one of the more disturbing patterns I've seen. This family sees retaliation as more important than the child's welfare. My new apartment had security that actually worked. Keycard entry, cameras everywhere, front desk attendant 24/7. Gave the address only to my boss, attorney, and Marcus. My fiancé had to go back to Germany for work. His visa had run out, his remote work arrangement was ending, and his company needed him on site. We both knew it was coming, but it still felt like losing my security blanket. "I'm starting your visa application immediately," he said at the airport, holding both my hands. "I'm getting you out of here as soon as legally possible." "The custody hearing is in 3 weeks," I said. "I have to testify." "I know. After that. Right after that, we're getting you out." He kissed me, boarded his plane, and I drove back to my fortress apartment alone. The custody hearing was scheduled for 11 in the morning on a Thursday in late May. I'd been coached by the attorney CPS assigned to Bean's case, knew what questions to expect, knew what to wear, professional but approachable, knew to look at the judge when speaking and keep my answers direct and factual. What I wasn't prepared for was seeing Bean. The courtroom was formal and cold, all wood paneling and uncomfortable chairs. My sister sat at one table with her public defender, my mother in the gallery behind her. Bean's father sat at another table with his attorney and a CPS representative. I sat in the witness area, waiting to be called. When the father walked in with Bean in his arms, the entire room went quiet. Bean looked completely different. Pink cheeks, clean clothes, trimmed hair. He was smiling, actually smiling, reaching for things with curiosity. The father testified first. He talked about the 2 years he'd spent trying to get custody, the thousands of dollars he'd spent on lawyers and drug tests and court fees. He talked about paying child support every single month even when he wasn't allowed to see his son. He talked about building a nursery in his apartment that sat empty for months, buying clothes and toys and books for visits that never happened because my sister would cancel or not show up or claim he was dangerous without any evidence. I knew something was wrong, but no one would listen. My turn came after lunch. I testified about finding Bean on my doorstep, his blue fingers, 29 minutes alone in the cold. "What made you decide to call CPS that morning?" "Because I realized I'd been making excuses for months," I said. I'd seen bruises and told myself babies bruise easily. I'd seen him hungry and told myself she was just busy. I'd heard about drug use and told myself it was probably exaggerated. But when I found him alone in the hallway, barely conscious from cold, abandoned by someone who was supposed to protect him, I couldn't make excuses anymore. I had to choose between protecting my sister's feelings and protecting a child's life. Was that a difficult choice? It should have been, I said quietly. I regret not calling sooner. They played the security footage. In a courtroom, on a screen. 4:32 in the morning, grainy but clear enough, my sister carrying Bean to my door and walking away while he cried. The sound was off, but you could see him crying. You could see her not look back. The judge's expression didn't change, but her knuckles went white on her pen. My sister's attorney tried to break me down on cross-examination. Wasn't I jealous of my sister? Hadn't I always resented her? Wasn't I trying to steal her child because I didn't have my own? Wasn't this all motivated by petty sibling rivalry? No, I said to each question. This is about a child who was left to die. Nothing else matters. The surprise witness came right before closing arguments. A woman from high school, my sister's friend. She'd found my sister unconscious from overdose 8 months earlier, Bean in his crib in a soaked diaper, surrounded by filth, clearly there for hours. I called 911, she said. They came and took her to the hospital. They said she'd overdosed. I thought they'd investigate, that Bean would be checked on. But nothing happened. No one followed up. So I called CPS myself, but without my name attached because I was scared of retaliation. Why come forward now? The attorney asked. Because I've been watching the news coverage. I've been watching her paint this picture like she's a victim, like her sister is lying, like none of this is real. And I couldn't stay quiet anymore. That baby almost died that day. He almost died again in February. How many times does he have to almost die before we stop letting it happen? My sister lost her composure then. She stood up screaming at the witness, screaming at me, screaming at everyone. Her attorney tried to calm her down. The judge threatened to hold her in contempt. My mother was crying in the gallery. It was chaos. Security removed my sister from the courtroom. The judge delivered her ruling without preamble. I am awarding full physical and legal custody to the father, effective immediately. The mother will serve 8 months in county jail for child endangerment and violating a protective order, to be followed by 5 years probation. She will complete substance abuse treatment and parenting classes before even being considered for supervised visitation. The maternal grandmother will face separate charges for her role in the harassment campaign. This case represents one of the most clear-cut examples of child endangerment and family dysfunction I have encountered. My sister started screaming again from the hallway where security was holding her. My mother collapsed in her seat, sobbing. The father was crying too, but holding Bean close, protective, like he was afraid someone would take him away again. The judge looked directly at me. Ms. Rowan, I want to thank you for your courage in coming forward. You may have saved this child's life. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and left through the side exit the bailiff showed me. The aftermath should have felt like victory. It felt more like exhaustion. My sister was remanded to custody immediately to begin her sentence. My mother made bail on her charges but was ordered to stay away from me pending trial. The rest of the family went quiet, either embarrassed by the court revelations or finally realizing their harassment campaign could land them in jail too. Bean went home with his father that day. I got photos sometimes, sent by the caseworker who'd become something like a friend through all of this. Bean in a high chair eating spaghetti, Bean at a park on a swing, Bean asleep in a bed that looked soft and warm and safe. 3 months after the hearing, the father called me. Bean's father, I should say, since that's who he really was. I wanted you to know, he said, that I'm putting you down as emergency contact. If something happens to me, I want you to have custody. Not her family, not the state. You're the one who saved him. I didn't know what to say to that. Still don't, honestly. I don't want to replace her, he continued. I don't want Bean to not know his mother when he's older. But I want him to know that there's a difference between biology and family. I want him to know that you chose to protect him when no one else would. That matters. Thank you, I managed, for letting me be part of his life. Thank you, he said, for giving him a chance at a life worth being part of. The second custody crisis came out of nowhere in September. Bean's father was in a serious car accident, T-boned by someone running a red light. Broken ribs, punctured lung, fractured pelvis, months of recovery ahead. CPS called me on a Thursday afternoon. Would I be willing to take temporary custody while he recovered? The alternative was foster care with strangers, which seemed cruel after everything Bean had been through. I said yes. What else could I say? I'd moved on from hoping for a quiet life about 6 months ago. Bean came to stay with me the next day. He didn't remember me. Not really. He'd been too young when everything happened. But kids are resilient. He adjusted to the new apartment, the new routine, the new person feeding him and putting him to bed. His father video called every single night from his hospital bed, even when he was clearly exhausted and in pain, reading bedtime stories through the phone screen. The family found out I had Bean within a week. I still don't know how. The address was supposed to be confidential. The custody arrangement was supposed to be private. But somehow, they knew. The attempted kidnapping happened at Bean's daycare. My uncle again, sober this time, with a forged letter claiming there was a family emergency and he needed to pick Bean up immediately. The daycare director, bless her, asked for ID and called me to verify before releasing him. When she told him no, he tried to grab Bean anyway and run. He was arrested in the parking lot, still carrying Bean, who was screaming. The director called me, the police, and CPS in that order. By the time I got there, my uncle was in handcuffs and Bean was safe, but terrified. CPS moved to make my temporary custody more formal after that. My sister, from prison, somehow filed motions to block it. My mother hired a lawyer and tried to get custody herself, despite her pending charges. The whole family seemed to think they were entitled to Bean just because of blood, regardless of the mountains of evidence showing why that would be dangerous. The judge shot them all down at a hearing I didn't even attend. My attorney called to tell me the outcome. She said, and I quote, "This family has demonstrated a pattern of prioritizing their own desires over the child's safety at every turn. This court will not reward that behavior with access. Your custody is extended through the father's recovery period." Bean spent 4 months with me. 4 months of daycare drop-offs and bedtime stories and teaching him to use a spoon and cleaning up more spilled juice than I thought was physically possible. 4 months of video calls with his father, who healed slowly but steadily, working his way from bed to wheelchair to walker to cane. It was exhausting. It was terrifying. It was also kind of beautiful, in a way I hadn't expected. Watching Bean learn to trust again, watching him laugh without that careful edge I'd seen before, watching him run to me when he fell down instead of crying silently like he used to. When his father was finally cleared to have him back, Bean cried. Not because he didn't want to see his father. He ran to him immediately, hugging his legs carefully. But when it was time for me to leave, Bean held onto my hand and said, "Stay?" That one word broke something in me I didn't know was still fragile. "I'll visit," I promised. "I'll visit lots." His father smiled at me over Bean's head, this understanding look that said, he got it. "We're family now," he said. "Not because of her, despite her. You're always welcome." The final hearing happened in October, 8 months after I'd found Bean on my doorstep. Termination of parental rights hearing. Official and permanent. This wasn't about custody anymore. This was about legally severing the connection forever. The courtroom had a different energy this time. Less dramatic, more bureaucratic. The judge had a thick file in front of her, 8 months of documentation, incident reports, psychological evaluations, drug tests, everything that had happened compiled into one damning record. My sister appeared by video conference from the county jail where she was serving her 8-month sentence. Thinner, older, orange jumpsuit instead of designer clothes. "I want full custody when I get out. He's my son. I have rights." None of this would have happened if my sister hadn't interfered. She made me look bad. She turned everyone against me. I was just stressed and needed help. The judge's tone went arctic. "Ms., I have reviewed your case extensively. This court has documentation of abandonment in life-threatening conditions, positive drug tests, violation of protective orders, coordination of harassment and assault, and absolutely zero demonstration of remorse or accountability. In my 23 years on the bench, I have rarely seen a clearer case for permanent termination of parental rights. But he is a child who deserves safety. You have proven, repeatedly and definitively, that you cannot provide that. Your parental rights are hereby permanently terminated. You will have no contact with the child until he reaches 18 years of age. At that point, if he chooses to reach out, that will be his decision. This ruling is final and not subject to appeal given the overwhelming evidence of endangerment." The gavel came down. The video connection cut off mid-protest. The courtroom was quiet. My mother tried to file an appeal anyway. It was denied within a week. She tried to get grandparent visitation rights, also denied. The family sent a few more threatening messages, but they tapered off after November. Turns out people lose interest in harassment campaigns when there are actual legal consequences, and the holidays are approaching. Marcus's visa came through in December, just in time for a quiet Christmas that felt more peaceful than any holiday I'd had in years. We got married in January at the courthouse. A simple ceremony with my boss's witness and the building security guard who'd become kind of a friend over the past year. No family, no drama. Just us, signing papers and promising things we meant. We moved to Germany in March, almost exactly 1 year after Bean was born. New country, new language to learn, new job for me, new life for both of us. I send emails to Bean's father regularly, asking how everything is going, getting updates and photos in return. Bean is 3 now. It's been about a year since we moved to Germany, and life feels almost normal. In the photos, he's tall for his age, all knees and elbows and endless energy. He plays at a small daycare where, according to his father, he's the kid who shares his snacks with everyone. He loves dinosaurs and trucks and making sound effects for everything. He has friends. He laughs constantly. He looks happy in a way that feels complete, not fragile or temporary. His father sends pictures from birthday parties and school events and random Tuesday afternoons. Bean blowing out candles. Bean showing off a painting he made. Bean asleep on the couch with a book on his chest. Normal kid things. Safe kid things. I haven't heard from my sister in over a year. My mother sends occasional emails that I don't read. The rest of the family has moved on to other drama, other targets. Sometimes I wonder if they even remember what they put us all through, or if they've rewritten it in their heads into some version where they're the victims. It doesn't matter anymore. For so long, I was waiting for the next crisis, the next confrontation, the next thing to go wrong. Now I'm just living, working a job I like, married to someone who proved he'd stand by me through literal attacks, learning German badly, making friends slowly, building a life that has nothing to do with the chaos I left behind. I still have nightmares sometimes, finding Bean on my doorstep, his blue fingers, not crying anymore because he'd given up, the security footage of my sister walking away, the bruises, the empty look in his eyes. But then I check my email and there's a new photo. Bean at the park, mid-laugh, being pushed on a swing by his father. Rosy-cheeked and whole and safe. It was worth it. Every threat, every sleepless night, every court appearance. He's okay now. That's the thing about families I've learned. The ones you're born into aren't always the ones that matter. Sometimes family is the people who choose to protect you when protection matters more than blood. Sometimes family is the ex-boyfriend who kept meticulous records for 2 years. Sometimes it's the daycare director who didn't fall for the forged note. Sometimes it's the judge who saw truth. Sometimes it's the father who rebuilt his life around his son's safety. And sometimes it's the aunt who found a baby on her doorstep and decided that some things are more important than keeping the peace. I'm okay with being that person. Last week, Bean's father sent me a video. Bean riding a bike with training wheels, wobbling and laughing. He stopped and looked at the camera. "Did Aunt Rowan see?" he asked. "I did it." His father texted after. "He asks about you constantly. Wants to know when you're visiting. Your family to him. I'm saving up for plane tickets. Maybe this summer. Maybe we'll take Bean to the park or the zoo or just let him run around showing off how high he can jump. Maybe his father and my husband will trade parenting stories while Bean tells me everything he knows about dinosaurs." Which, according to his last video call, is a million billion things. Maybe it won't feel like the end of a nightmare anymore. Maybe it'll just feel like a regular Saturday with family, the kind of boring normal that I never thought I'd get to have. That would be nice. After everything, boring and normal sounds perfect.